Good morning, it's Brian. It is a Tuesday morning. You are on the Art of Startup War. Again, you are going to listen to a phenomenal entrepreneur. You're going to listen to an entrepreneur that we at Expert Dojo were lucky enough to be able to invest in. We saw this man and his company literally while we were still doing the previous accelerator. We weren't even supposed to be investing back in that time. But as soon as we saw him, not only did I meet with Soumya myself and I thought, okay, this is incredible. But then I also get a phone call from my buddy, Sunny Singh, who said to me, if you don't invest in this guy, you're crazy. And Sunny happens to be an investor that I respect tremendously here in Santa Monica. And then we spoke to another investor who said the same thing to us. So what the hell? We're not geniuses, but we're not stupid either. So I knew immediately that this was a platform and a space that we wanted to get involved in. Soumya, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So today we are going to talk about Essenvia, and we're going to talk about how you started the company, where it came from. Bring us to the genesis of the idea first, and then we're going to work our way through to how we're going to turn this into a monster company in the future.
Definitely. Thank you, Brian. So, throughout my career, 15 years, I've been in the healthcare space, right? Worked with these Fortune 50 healthcare customers. And I've seen the entire process of, how healthcare gets delivered, how medical devices have such an important role to play in the well-being. We always used to think that medical devices are MRI scanners, they are stethoscopes. But bandages are in our first aid kits, and they are medical devices too. The little measurers of your cough syrup, they are medical devices too. It's
amazing.
So deeply ingrained in our lives, we tend to ignore how important they have become. In fact, 1.5 million medical devices, a WHO report says 1.5 million devices globally are in the market in some form or other, right? Either going through a process to getting cleared, or in the hands of patients who are already using them, or in the hands of a physician who are trying to make the patient's life better. And, while doing my MBA at UCLA, I had so many entrepreneurs who were either physicians or doctors, and they had so many unmet needs. They were constantly getting rattled by how difficult it is to get their idea and solve these other problems they find in the healthcare system using medical devices. They just did not know and were baffled. How do we get there, Soumya, right? You are a person who's been in healthcare. Can you tell us how can we simplify this? That is the genesis of my capstone project at UCLA, and then led me to start this company, trying to solve this humongous problem and make world a better place. At the end, doing anything with healthcare, it is always exciting, right? And you're directly impacting people's lives. So that's a little bit of background of how it all started, Brian.
Amazing. And the incredible thing about the entire regulatory process, which, and I know FDA reasonably well, because I know so many people who have been or are involved with FDA processes, and we see so many companies that are going through FDA regulation. But what I didn't realize was that every single year there are over 500,000 products that are going through some form of healthcare regulatory process. That is insane. Like insane. That amount of new products every year. Like that would say in the last 10 years, 5 million attempts have been made at some form of regulatory process being passed. I mean, this market is absolutely enormous.
Oh, it definitely is. To add to it, the drug world, a drug takes 10 years to come to market. A new device only takes 3 to 4 years. So you can imagine the rapid scale of innovation that is so inherent with this industry. You have school kids, you have engineers that are in university. They are trying to develop a mobile app to do a diagnostic to say if you have a respiratory disease or if you have a heart problem. Can you imagine, as widespread as software is becoming in our lives, so will the advent of new medical devices and how they evolve and get ingrained in our lives. Yeah. That's the level of growth and opportunity we are looking at and when we look at the medical device industry.
Yeah. And we know the really funny thing is, like, we look at this and say, yeah, 500,000 seems like a lot, but actually it's the tip of the iceberg. What's going to happen is we're going to end up having an unbelievable amount. If I fast forward into our homes in 10, 15 years in the future, and maybe even earlier, I see us having all of these devices to check everything. There'll be something we put our finger on, we're checking our heartbeats. We'll have our Fitbits, which are already checking every single other stat. And then another and another and another and another and another. And there will be all these providers coming in with each one of these. Like really, and here's what's beautiful from your perspective and from our perspective investing in you. It's so confusing. It's so hard.
It is. It's just people don't want to even venture into understanding it. They find it so confusing and baffling as to what is really going on there. Can somebody just come in and help me guide through this process, right? And tell me everything I need to do. Like there's simple things that can actually get you in trouble. And a simple example is, unless you've got your product approved from FDA, you aren't even allowed to write on your website what it does exactly, or to say. And these simple things can actually get you off the market and be very, it could be counterproductive or prohibitive to what you've been trying to do. Such a great idea, so many years of work, all gone to waste, right? So yeah, there's little things like these that people don't even understand, that we think we can definitely have our share in making that much more easily accessible and understandable by people, every person who wants to innovate and build a medical device, right? In doing it the right way and in the right time. So that's...
Absolutely. And, I equate it to a 10-year-old saying to his or her parents that they want to stay up late at night, is that that the initial answer is going to be no, right? and then what you work towards is you're working towards with a but. So you're saying, I want FDA approval. No, but it's really going to help old people. No, but I've had it tested on these people. No, but I've gone here. So it's really, really challenging, because it's not like you don't mind so much if you know the specific steps that you take to go through the regulatory process. And actually, the American one is probably one of the more simple and straightforward ones. There are other countries where it's virtually impossible. So I really did think it was genius when you said to me, I'm building a platform that becomes like the Fiverr for all devices, all regulatory approval everywhere. It doesn't matter what they need throughout the regulatory approval, whether it means the consulting that they have in place now, or that's expanded to literally design, websites, everything that they need in the future. It all begins here. What a peace of mind that gives to consumers.
You would end up, from the time that you have this idea to bringing the device to market, you could actually be working with at least 25 different specialists or experts. Design, development, product labels, everything is regulated, and you need to make sure everything you're doing is right. If you just wake up one night and think I'm ready for FDA clearance or to go into Europe, not going to happen. You're going to go back and find there are several holes in everything that you've been doing. So doing, or at least following this process and being guided through it in a manner that is accessible. Again, I keep bringing this word accessible. A lot of times companies don't do it is because it seems to them as an inaccessible, different entity that they don't need to even deal with, right? And that is exactly where Essenvia wants to make a difference in this world, that anybody that has a novel idea or a great idea should not be intimidated. They should be passionate and enthusiastic about what they're building and why they're building it, right? And we take that pain or confusing element out of their road to market.
Wonderful. So how did you do this? Because I know you speak like the king of the world for regulatory approval, but actually it's almost as daunting, if not more daunting, to build a platform with all of the solutions to everybody for the process that they should go through to make it simpler for regulatory approval than getting regulatory approval in the first place. So take us through that journey of where you started and kind of some of the milestones that you went through.
Sure. I think one of the important parts of understanding how complex this whole process of medical device is to understand what you are going to be good at and where would you need to build partnerships, right? If you are trying to just solve this problem all by yourself, it's going to be a endeavor that is going to take really long time. So we took what our expertise was, which was AI and machine learning, right? And technology development. My expertise has been in building digital products and process re-engineering. That means looking at existing silos and existing ways of doing things, breaking them down, and then building simple solutions that people can relate to and find it easier to use. Then we started partnering with these great experts who've been with FDA before, but are now guiding companies, and then bringing them along to use the platform as the medium to work more collaboratively in a much more forward-thinking fashion to see how technology can bring them speed through our platform, and their expertise can bring in the savviness that these companies need, and then combining it to make these companies successful each time they come and work with us.
Fantastic. And then how difficult was that at the beginning? So you launched the platform, or did you launch the service, or did you start bringing in clients? Like, how did you build it? Because now you're in great shape. You've got all of these consultants on the platform that you can give different consultants, different people. The marketplace is already working. You're already bringing in revenue. But how did you build the trust to get the two sides of this marketplace built?
Such an important question, Brian. Trust obviously is very important before you work with partners or customers or anyone, as a matter of fact, right? You have to establish trust. In the world of medical device, where people have spent several years building a technology and an IP that they would like to protect, it just becomes 10 times more important, right? Because now people are trusting you with the idea and knowing that you will do right by them, right? Plus, you're also building a solution that other people feel excited about. So from the get-go, that's also what took us almost a lot of research. We talked to almost 600 people from the industry, different consultants, big companies, small companies, consultants in the space, even early stage VCs who've invested in medtech companies. We collected all that feedback, and that was sort of our customer discovery, but also our understanding of how challenging the problem is. And that went into our early prototype. As we were developing, we were constantly interacting with all these consultants. We brought them in terms of making sure we took their decisions and their feedback when we were building this platform out, right? We were not just building something that we would say, hey, medical device companies, just use the platform and you're set. No, we always understood it's going to be a collaboration. You need to have expertise and you need to make that more accessible through a platform such as ours. So getting that feedback and that feedback loop going, which, by the way, we do that even today, constantly. In fact, this morning, I was on a call for an hour with a client who is a medical device customer and a consultant who we are working with, and they're actually about to file their submission tomorrow, right? And we're discussing what have they come across, how difficult it might be for understanding and how these things have become and evolved. So we're constantly doing that. And I think that's a process that is very important and kind of ingrained in our company. I think we take feedback very seriously. We go back and put them back into, however that leads us in evolving the product. So that's kind of what has allowed us to build the trust in making people's feedback heard and implemented.
So what we loved was you had gone through that entire process. You had built the trust with the users. You had built the trust with the consultants. You had built the trust with some of the other providers. We love that you'd started to drive revenue already through the platform. We love that you hadn't raised that much money. So you had done all of this off your own back, which is incredible. But what we really loved was the vision of where you're going to in the future. So speak a little bit about that vision and what it looks like and where you see your marketplace going from here. And I'll put it into perspective. As investors, we all look at how does a company go from, I kind of see them as islands and bridges, right? So island number one is how do we get a product launched, right? And then there's a bridge to island number two, which is how do we get 20, 30, 50 grand a month, right? That we can show that there's proof of life. Island two is that proof of life island. And then there's another bridge to island three. And island three is our seed, but leading to our Series A island, right? And then that's when you're doing $100,000 to $500,000 a month. And then the next island, that's the beautiful beautiful island where all the investors come in, because now you're doing not 3 to 500,000 a month, you're doing $3 to $5 million a month. Like, that's the island where everybody from the M&A, you're the beauty of the ball, right? Everybody wants to know you. So speak a little bit as to how you grow the revenue in the business. You've already done the first island, boom, 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 finished. You've done the second island. How do you go from the second island where you're now bringing in revenue to the third island where you're building it up to like 100 grand a month and so on?
Right. I think one of the important parts in being able to do that is to think about the ecosystem as a whole, right? If you see the market, medical device industry is going to double the spend on services, right? It's going to reach $210 billion by 2025. And
Wow.
if we become that connector or the matching service, that again, I don't want to call ourselves a matching service only, right? We are a platform that also helps the two parties engage, or these different players come together and engage through our platform. So we look at it as building capabilities that simplify administrative work, right? And then we look at core business process automation, which is simplifying how you can get a plan completed. How can you build collaboration between them? How can you leverage AI to bring information that can help people make those decisions quickly in terms of finding the right pathway to market, to finding the right expert? If I am building a hip implant, I should find the expert who knows hip implant, right? And I should be the platform that makes that information available to you quickly and in your fingertips. But if you are building the next generation, cardiovascular device that becomes like a pacemaker of completely next generation, then you need to be able to talk to a specialist who clearly understands that. And that is essentially where we see the hyper verticalization, understanding the device industry so well that you are actually making very valuable connections for people to extract value out of it. And while creating that value, we hope and we are positive we can capture a value that is big enough for Essenvia from the $210 billion services market that the industry is already spending money on.
Yeah, no doubt in my mind that you'll do that. But talk to me a little bit about the milestones and also timelines as far as achieving that.
Sure. So today, we are raising, getting ready to raise our seed round. We are looking at growing to about 500 customers by the end of 2021, and having made about 5,000 connections and 5,000 projects run through the platform. When I say projects, this could be projects that a design company is supporting, a regulatory company is supporting, a quality company is supporting, a packaging, labeling company is supporting. 5,000 of them. We do think that we would have accomplished at least 100 clearances done through the platform, because that is truly the measure of success and how quickly we can do that. With that, we would get to a revenue that will get us closer to a $2 to $2.5 million in recurring revenue. But we would have also built considerable transaction activity going through the platform, right? We are engaging customers. We are also building transaction volume. We think we would have supported $7.5 to $8 million in transaction volume by then at that point. That's about 24 months. Where we are today, I am very confident we can get to that stage, because we are already hitting numbers that are close enough to $150,000 in just 6 months since we've started. We continue down this path, we will get to those milestones, which at that point, then it's about going and scaling much rapidly and globally into companies that are available worldwide.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said globally, because there's no border with this. Everybody faces these problems all over the world. And what you're doing is what's so beautiful about your platform. You don't have to have all of that knowledge yourself. You have to have the infrastructure to suck in the knowledge, right?
Right.
And that's
so, Brian,
all.
we already have customers from Canada. I have customers from Europe who are wanting to come to US, and customers in US who are wanting to now go to Europe faster than they initially thought they would. They were thinking about all this being a sequential process. Now they're able to work on them because of the scale, almost in parallel streams, because of the synergies and efficiencies that we have clients even from China who are now bringing their products to the US. And these are like great products that have never reached here. Now they're getting that access, and it's a good thing. I think that cross-pollination is going to only evolve over a period of time, where companies look at more global scale, even if they are smaller in size or very early stage medical device companies.
Yeah, it positions you to absolutely win in this race. And then how much investment are you going to require to start building this revenue up over the next 24 months?
So we are raising a $1.2 million in seed round. An important part is, this is in no way an indication of how much value we can add, because as you know, part of my co-founder Basant, right? He is from Goldman Sachs. My engineering team, most part of it, the engineering part of it is done in India. So we are being very capital efficient when we actually build our product out. So our margins are equally going to show those numbers, because we are able to build, and that's a competitive advantage in today's world. We are able to attract talent from two markets, both the US and India, right? Two great technologically advanced markets where we can tap into. So that will get us to the revenue figures, the customer acquisition, and that allows us to spend some money on marketing, which is very, very important. We have done zero marketing. I would say this is our first step towards marketing, Brian, talking to you and being publicly able to share what our vision and thoughts are.
Beautiful. And then going beyond that, so you raised the $1.5 million, and I'm guessing then we're going to look at a Series A sometime mid-2021?
Yes, we're looking at about Q3, Q4 to get our Series A. That would be $4.5 million raise, right? And should get us to, we would be getting to about, with that raise, 10 times the customer base that we have. And, growing the recurring revenue at least 2 to 3 times, and also focusing a lot on marketplace, because that is truly when we will have a lot of activity. We would have, the critical mass build both from the consultant side, and also enough medical device companies who have now gone through the process, but now have products in the market, right? They will need more of us. They will need more things to work with. And that's essentially where we would like to continue to build this partnership with these companies that we are acquiring now.
I love it. And then we go to war. I want to, because this is it. Like, you're building this monster, and now you can see the finish line. Like, you're there. You're like Jesse Owen. Like, you can see it. You're running, you're sprinting. You can see it in front of you. And now for the very first time, there's like a path to get there. Before it was, I need to get more providers. I need to get more users. And now you're like, well, hold on a second. And I think COVID really proved that to you, was when this whole calamity happened, where everybody was set at home, then everything started to really explode with your business, because people wanted a very simple, streamlined regulatory system where they can monitor a process which is predictable. And hey presto, you're the only person who's actually got one of those built.
Again, yes, absolutely. We were nimble, we were agile, so we were able to actually build something that was absolutely going to help bring respirators and ventilators when we were approached. So not only was the technology helpful, a partner came through. One of our partners or consulting firms actually was right on it, thinking, yes, this is a problem that we should solve with the technology, and use my expertise to help companies who just find this process. And I don't know if you know, Brian, FDA's regulations for COVID-related devices, they are changing at least twice every day since the last 4 weeks. It's extremely challenging for companies to keep up and still be able to bring a device and be compliant. Because at the end of the day, and the heart of it is to bring not just medical devices, but safe medical devices that you can see your family using, and I can be confident that, yes, these are safe devices that my family would be able to use. So that's essentially what's at the...
Absolutely. Now, I want to get in a moment, and I want to look at the entire vision of what you're building, and I want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about that. Before we do that, I want to do 2 things. I would like you to just take us through maybe the personal journey of the most challenging part of this so far, and it might be one moment. It might be a negative interaction with an institution or with people or something else, but like the hardest moment for you. And then I want you to go to the other side of the hero story of the most exciting moment, like the moment you broke through, the moment it felt like all of the bricks were lifted off your chest and you could truly breathe again. And then I'm going to provide a summary after that. So, but bring me through those. First of all, let's start with a really, really, really tough moment.
There's so many of them, Brian. As you can imagine, there's so many of them. I guess what I have, as you start off, right, you recognize you're leaving a safe corporate job and going to venture out on your own, right? And you think, oh my God, I think I will get what I want very quickly. You only start to realize you're moving much slower than you had initially imagined. You don't have capital, you don't have resources, you have nothing. You're all by yourself. So partnership discussions don't go well. Your discussion with customers are so okay because there are some people who believe, but most of them actually would turn you back. They would say, I need to look at something so I know what you're talking about, right? That would immediately almost put brakes on you thinking, oh my God, I'm looking back 3 months. I had a nice job. I was in this corporate world. Am I doing the right thing? And you start second guessing yourself. And on top of that, you're now building your team. Like you get your co-founder on, who's a great technologist. You need to sell him to the idea of why this is great, why this is big. And yet you have these, questions in your mind. I need to push through. And how am I going to keep this team going along with me as I'm pursuing this so massively important idea and a vision that I believe in, right? I think I would say there are several other challenges and concerns or, setbacks I've had. But the most important thing at the end of the day is how do you keep your team that has been with you together going with you longer, right? How do you keep them motivated with the vision that you have and the problem that you're trying to solve? Because I'm sure there's going to be several more that will come down the line. So that I think is one of the things that I would say have been like the most important challenges for me, to keep up with.
And what about on the good side? What about that moment when something incredible happened that you realized it was a tipping point, like a very, very important tipping point? Like you're in the battle, there's just hundreds of soldiers coming at you, you're fighting them, you're falling away, and then suddenly there's a moment where you push back.
You want me to be honest? So the honest truth is getting the first customer pay you, right? And finding out what the willingness to pay is. See, we can build all these pricing strategies. My product is worth $1,000, $1 million. At the end of the day, when you are in your customer discovery phase early on, you find out some customers would actually outright say, this is worth nothing. We have other ways to do it, right? And we won't. And then at some point, when you see your first customer is willing to pay you $1,000 or even $5,000, you know you're building something valuable, right? You just need to hone in and find more of those customers. And that's the tipping point. You know who you are looking for and what that ideal customer is. That's also the first validation that you have something that the world values, right? It's not n is equal to 1, as I call it, that you think I have value in. But it's also a great moment to go back and share with your team because now you know the team's got this one success saying they've been working towards something. This is such an important milestone. It gives us a reason to push forward, actually with much more vigor, passion, and enthusiasm, right? That to me was the check that came. I still remember it. That check was a $2,500 check. Came in the mail, right? I was so happy to see that check. So, yes.
Did you take a picture?
I did.
That's the great thing. And by the way, that's what distinguishes from startup with having a job. Startup, we are so happy. That first check that comes through, we take a picture, we love it, we cuddle it, we cradle it in our arms. It's the most beautiful thing in the world. And, there are so many things. So I want to do a summation. And then I would like to move to the next part where you're going to give your email, contact details, so your email and website. And then after you give your email and website, I want you to give us a vision statement looking back. So I want you to fast forward 5 years in the future, and I want you to tell us where the company is, what the company has done, what it's achieved, and you are speaking to your investors, the people who invested with you, right from the very beginning. Okay, so I'll let you think about that for a moment and I'll surmise. In this summation, for me, I'm focusing on what is it that makes this company special for investors. Like, it's already a no-brainer from me. We invested in you because I and we think you're awesome as a company and we believe you're going to break through. But when I'm speaking to my investor friends and I'm saying, like, why was it we made the decision for you? There are elements which I'll get to in a second, but there was one element, there was one thing that you really satisfied, which very few other entrepreneurs are able to do. And it's the moat that you're creating for the success of your company. There are a lot of entrepreneurs who actually have great teams, and there are a lot of very genius entrepreneurs who are building phenomenal products. Like, there are many people who are like you and me and trying to do really great things in the world, but there are very, very few who are looking to build a very strong and robust moat for the business, because most people can't. So what do I mean when I say a moat? I'm talking about a defensible artillery that stops other people from building the same thing. Now, why is that? Number one, the head start that you've got. Number two, the difficulty in actually building what you're building. It's incredibly hard. Like, to actually have this and put these people on this platform, God bless you, nobody will leave this platform once they are there, because you will become an institution. You will become the Wikipedia. Everybody will know that the only place that they come for a 3-star restaurant is Michelin. The only place that they come for the 3-star reviews for the right people to help them through regulatory procedure is through your platform. And you've built that very carefully and very brilliantly. So that for me is the biggest thing. Any investor who's ever looking at a company, if they can find that, if we can find a McAfee, if we can find an Oracle, if we can find an iPhone, an Apple, like if we can find those brands, they're gold. And you are building that brand through the complexity of everything that surrounds it. So for that, I commend you. And most investors, for that alone, should go for you. You've also demonstrated all of the other aspects, the execution, the building a team, the focusing on money. I love your story about that first check coming through, because it's so true. You're, as an entrepreneur, you're either a creative, you're a logistics person, or you're a biz dev person, i.e. you want to see results, right? And you even saying that shows that you can toggle between the creative and the business development very, very well, whereby depending on the specific time of the company, the right one gets the right amount of focus. Also, the product fit in the market is huge, and people don't realize it. So when you put all of those together, and I take you at the early stage with already markets proof, already customers buying the product, already people on the marketplace, for me, it's a no-brainer. Okay, so moving on to you now. So contact details, please, and then finish it up with something special on you, what you're doing, and you're looking back from 5 years in the future, speaking to your investors about what you achieved.
That's a lot to remember, but yes. So my email ID is soumya@essenvia.com, SOUMYA @essenvia, ESSENVIA.com. You can also find me on the Expert Dojo website, the portfolio company. My details are there. Our website is essenvia.com, ESSENVIA.com. When I look at our company 5 years down the line, I want to be the go-to platform for anyone who has an idea to bring a medical device to market. From the point that they can come in, answer a few questions, and find out if it is a medical device, or they need to find another way to bring this to market. But we want to be that connector to the world of medical device. No matter where you are, what stage you are in, this is your portal into the medical device world. You will find resources. You will find experts. Again, I cannot stress this more. We only get very, very highly specialized experts on the platform. Experts who've been in the industry over 15 years, have been with FDA, have been consulting, and are the people who do the right things. All of them personally reviewed and talked to So they will always do the right thing, right? So we are very, very selective in who we bring onto the platform, at least to make sure that the quality is sustained, right, for companies. And we're looking at 5 years, getting to a $50 million in revenue. I know it's a huge vision, but with the marketplace and the global scale that our platform can get and is already experiencing, I absolutely think we can get there, right? And then we want to be the company that has brought over 10,000 medical devices to market, right? That's huge. That's a lot of lives that we can directly touch. So that's where we would like to be.
Let me add to my list, clarity of vision. Listen, we could not be happier that we've invested in you. I hope this message for all of the investors who see it is extremely clear as to what you're going to build and which smart people can join you on the journey. And for anybody who obviously wants to contact us, always contact me at Brian at Expert Dojo. My friend, the journey has just begun with us.
Thank you so much.
And that's a wrap.